All right, welcome to this other session when we'll review the core competencies and skills for success that make an effective technical program manager. So, technical program manager excellence can be broken down into four main areas or pillars. So you can look at these as like a four-legged table where you need to balance all of these to be effective. You can't just overly specialize in one angle. The first one is obviously project and program management expertise when it comes to knowing your ins and outs as far as planning, executing, delivering, and monitoring complex initiatives on time, in scope, and on schedule. But you do also, and this is where the technical comes in, need to develop technical domain knowledge and credibility with technical teams to be dangerous enough to understand code, AI tools, system integrations, and all the technical areas that your projects and programs are about effectively. So you need to have influence with your teams to be able to be dangerous enough to then relay the technical knowledge to, and this is where the third pillar comes in, to the business side of things, and being able to connect that technical work to what your business and your organization ultimately needs to deliver in terms of business outcomes, speaking the language of executives, and the metrics that any initiative is measured upon in terms of success. The fourth and ultimately super important layer, and I could probably argue this is the most important piece, is people and communication bit. As usual, this is a very technical role, but also a very people heavy role and a very communication heavy role. So you'll need to really develop your communication chops and skills and start to learn how to influence with our authority, build trust with your teams, both on the business side and on the technical side, and understand the organizational dynamics in which your program is located. So let's start from just a quick overview of like your project management fundamentals. So when it comes down to frameworks and methodologies, of course, in the world of project and program management, there's many different ones that you can use. But I would say that the most important skill in this area here is the ability to break down complexity or break down ambiguity into simplicity. So figuring what your teams need most clarity on at any given time, whether you're at the middle of the project, at the end, or at the beginning, and breaking and building that clarity just to get teams to move forward. So how do you keep your project or program going forward? What is the most important 1, 2, 3 things that you need to do to just ensure that your project is unblocked and your project has enough clarity to get to the next phase and then to the next phase and so on and so forth. So core capabilities here are, of course, breaking down complexity. We've seen it, figuring out what realistic timelines look like. And again, there will be a session specific on this later on, but realistic timelines is also a matter of negotiating and communication as well with your business stakeholders, depending on the weights of the initiatives as well. And internally, of course, identifying dependencies and figuring out how to keep scope clear and clearly defined and with boundaries to really help the motions of the engineering and technical teams as well. I will leave a couple of methodologies to master here, from like the more agile and Scrum for iterative environments to the more predictive approaches such as waterfall or more traditional looking projects. But again, we'll go into these ones a bit detailed later on. The key question that you usually would get as a technical program manager is like, how technical do you need to be? And I think the key is lies in finding the right balance. So you definitely don't need to at a level of a software developer, but you do need to be dangerous enough in the technical realm and the domain realm in which you operate to understand what the teams are talking about and be able to, again, connect it to the technical work and understand what the implications of the technical discussions are for achieving the business objectives of the project and program. So I would summarize it as like, your goal is not to be an additional engineer or even the best engineer in the room, but is to be the best connector, the best glue guy or gal, and the best translator between engineering and the business side. There's lots of interesting cool domains that you can specialize upon becoming a technical program manager, and I'll argue even before. So if you're looking to move into this role, it is very likely that you have already present domain area and expertise around either some of these that you see here, and these are just some examples. I'm working a lot around, for example, data systems and AI ML systems, but you may experience, for example, covering past roles in the mobile development space or in cloud infrastructure space. So this can also be a functional area, for example, marketing at the intersection of a technical area. So, for example, marketing technologies and marketing systems, where you can leverage your functional understanding, business level understanding of marketing best practices, and then unite that and combine that with marketing technologies and systems, and work, for example, as a technical program manager dedicated to a marketing technology pillar or marketing operations team. I would say the business acumen side of things, and the fact that you are able to speak multiple languages, whether on the technical side or on the business side, are ultimately what's going to set you apart. So having also a clear business level understanding of the business model that your organization has, what are the key metrics, and what is the way that the business makes money, and how that translates to your technical project is absolutely useful to know. This also allows you the ability to think strategically about, okay, what am I doing as a technical program manager, and how does that connect with the top line of the business, the cost line of the business, and the metrics that they're ultimately measuring at an executive level. So having some sort of financial literacy that allows you to be able to understand the revenue model, think strategically about it, and also justify from an ROI perspective technical program investment decisions, or make versus buy type of technology decisions, is key in being able to speak the language of executives in a way that they relate to. As well, of course, knowing your industry and staying constantly up to date on the latest technologies that are entering the competitive landscape, many regulatory or government level requirements, as well as like what are the latest innovation areas, for example, in terms of market trends, what are key competitors, and all of those traditional industry dynamics. Again, I said this already, but I can't highlight this enough. Like, people skills are really the superpower of this role as well. Being able to translate back and forth from the technical to business domain and vice versa, and being able to build enough credibility and have a persona and build a persona through time that allows you to influence projects and influence stakeholders without authority, and really being an effective team member across all of those stakeholders that you work with is going to take you far, given that you're not usually granted a positional level of authority as well. And honestly, just also having high EQ and emotional intelligence, and being able to recognize the needs of a team, the needs of yourself, and sort of like being I would summarize this as like just being an aware and good person to work with, and easy to work with, and relatable person to work with is going to take you far. All of these four pillars are not ingrained in any person. Like, anybody, I'm a firm believer that anybody can learn these. There's a good rule of that can help you here in terms of how to develop and where to develop these skills, which is like this 70-20-10 rule. So that basically can be explained as you're going to do most of the learning hands-on, on the job, working on real projects and programs. A minor part of that is also going to come through either mentorship and observation of more senior peers in your team, or other people that have been there before and have done it. And as well, you're going to supplement this knowledge with formal courses, certification, online courses, which I'm a big believer in, having taken many throughout my career and having seen a lot of help and utility come from them. I've left here some practical development strategies for example, examples of experiments or things that you can actually try to develop these further as well. A big one that I would highlight on the technical skill side of things is just really pairing with engineers who really don't traditional architecture diagram. They're just like getting informed and studying on the technical side of things to just really understand what people are talking about in technical conversations when you do actually get on Zoom calls, when you get in the room. So you have built-in context knowledge to be able to follow the conversation and contribute effectively to the conversation as well. Yes, and real talk. You'll need to balance all four pillars to be successful. You can't over-index on any one of these because over the long run, you're going to be exposed. Whether, if you can be a great people person, but if you're not technical enough, you're going to get called out alongside the reverse is also possible, right? You can be a great technical contributor, but if you cannot translate their technical prowess into metrics that make sense for the business, for the executives that you're going to speak to in a language that they understand, you're also going to suffer. So overall, developing along all these four pillars is key. And again, underpin all of this by building practical experience, breaking down complexity, and bringing simplicity to teams to allow them to work on what's next. So key takeaways for this session are mastering all the four pillars in a balanced way is key. Building technical fluency or expertise, meaning, again, you don't need to be the best engineer in the room, but you need enough to be dangerous. Connecting the technical work to the business metrics and what matters in the organization. And being a well-rounded person from a communication, influencing, and emotional intelligence perspective to be able to yourself, as we ultimately all work with people. All these four, you're going to learn by doing, you're going to learn by practicing through the 70, 20, and 10 rule, through mostly hands-on experience, supplied by additional mentorship and formal educations. So next up, we'll see some of the typical and maybe less typical career paths for a technical program manager and what the market opportunities are at the moment. Thank you. See you in the next one.